This is Call with Dads, where we dive into the ups, downs, and everything in between when it comes to being a dad. Here, it's all about connecting with a community of dads who are committed to learning and leveling up as fathers. Welcome to Call with Dads. Let's talk.
Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of crazy stuff that we deal with. So let's just get into the whole topic. What we wish we would have known before having kids, before getting married, and some of the bad advice that we got through all this. Because I can tell you, even before I got married and had kids, if I would have followed all the advice I was given to begin with, it would have just been, I followed some of it, and it's part of why I stayed single for so long, you know? But
yeah, that's a lot of the advice that I got. A lot of it, I would say things I wish I would have known when I was younger. First of all, buy Bitcoin.
yes.
Yeah. Stupid ass.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy Bitcoin. That's weird. Yeah. Now it's, Bitcoin's like 10 cents a coin. Now it's like $400,000 billion. Yeah, stupid idiot.
See, that to me goes to bad advice, because I literally was researching how to buy it, how to store it, all this stuff. And then I'm like, even if I buy $100 of it, let it sit, forget about it, this and that, just don't lose the wallet. And I got told, oh no, you're stupid, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Right.
And
Me too.
You get told,
don't do it. It's dumb.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. $100 of Bitcoin. If I'd have bought that in the year 2000, that would be like 10 million bucks right now.
Yeah.
And I would probably not be doing this podcast.
It's funny how money can change so many things.
Right. I would be in Tahiti and.
Oh yeah. Well.
But yeah. So, actual advice, things I think that would have helped me in marriage and life and family and stuff like that is the big one. The big one that everyone is told when they're young. Oh, don't get married right away and have kids. Soil your royal oats. That's such BS.
Yeah.
It is such BS. I did it. I was wrong. I can tell now because there are certain indications that I have today that are incorrect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I still particularly have lust for other women. It happens all the time. You know what I mean? I don't cheat on my wife, of course not.
Right.
But, the thoughts are there.
Yeah.
Instagram boobs, pornography, all that stuff comes into play. Granted, these days I've crushed, pretty much all of it and don't partake in that stuff as much. But there are days where I'm like, ooh, sweet tits. It's I'm a male. It's natural. Not to mention the majority of my younger years, were all just riddled with porn, lots of girls, going around and running around with every girl possible, doing all that stuff, partying and boozing and soiling my royal oats. I thought, I'm in the military and travel the world. I did all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd have known better, if I'd have known reality, I wouldn't have done that. I would have, I don't want to be all Mr. Christian or nothing, but if I'd have known better, I would have went and joined a church. I would have met a local girl, with her family or whatever, that is interested in that stuff and family and was more traditional and went that direction. Not that I dislike my current family, and I'm very blessed with what I have. And I'm very lucky to have found what I have. I got lucky to find my wife, as amazing as she is all the time. But there are still those indications. Even she has some of them. Because she, was told the same thing, and she did all the same stuff. So what do? She does it sometimes. Goes and she wants to go and hang out by the pool and drink and do these things and stuff like that. Me as well. I do too. But if we'd have never through all that stuff, would we be thinking about those things all the time today? Probably not. It probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. You'd be like, whatever.
Yeah.
Not to mention, one of them is, I mean, I've been to Vegas a bunch of times. I've been to Alaska. I've been to, several states. I've been all over Europe. I've all over Asia, all over the Middle East. She's never done any of those.
Right.
She's been to Korea. I think she went to Korea once because she's of Korean descent, so her parents allow her to go over there for like a 2-week vacation, whatever, just to go see what it's like over there. And that's all. I spent more time in Korea than my wife. That's of Korean descent. Yeah, and I spent a year there. You know what I mean? So she never got to do those things. So now she always wanted to go to Vegas. But who's she going to go with? Me? I've already been there like 30 times. Vegas to me is like, so now we don't get to experience it together.
Right.
And there's 1,000 things like that we could.
Well, yeah. And kind of look at it in this way, like my wife from China, she's gotten to see China, which I would love to see, as long as we're not there for, as long as we stay out of political things and just do the sightseeing, see her family. China, the landscape, a lot of it's gorgeous over there.
Yeah,
so,
it is, yeah.
But agree or
I want to
disagree.
go to a wet market and just grab a fish meal.
Yeah, I have no interest in that. Plus, I'm not a big fish person. But
just spread disease.
But the fact is that the whole thing, from like what you were saying, is sowing your wild oats. I was always told, oh, you don't want to get married, because when I was younger, I was engaged. I was right out of high school, was about to get married, had all this intention. And I think I spoke about that situation on another episode about her cheating on me, running off, blah, 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 which at the time, devastating. Just was just like messed me up. But even while I was engaged, I was always told, oh, you're making a mistake, you're doing all this. And then she did that, and next thing in my head was, But what I realized as you're talking, like the boobs, the girls, all this, it's kind of like you start drinking. So you drink, and say you turn 21 here in the States, whatever it is in other countries, blah, blah, blah. But 21 here in the States, you start drinking and you're partying. And next thing you know, you're drinking a 6-pack. You're 21, you're drinking a 6-pack every day. Then by 22, you're buying a case of beer, and you're not sure how that went by so fast. And then you're buying a couple cases a week and all this. And as it progresses, if you're doing that, honestly, I would say you're an alcoholic at that point, right? But, and you could be a functional alcoholic. Drink in the nights, get drunk, piss your bed, wake up, clean up, go to work, and be fine, But the fact is the day that you say, okay, I'm going to quit drinking. I'm only going to have one beer and one beer a day, and that's it for the rest of my life. So an alcoholic's not going to be able to stop and say one beer. Right. Because what's going to happen is he's going to look at that one beer and say, yeah, but those other beers look so good as well. Now, mind you, I'm simplifying.
I can have one more.
Yeah, alcoholism, you can't just have one beer a day, obviously. But the concept is
it gets pretty tough.
You're going to, if you're trying to have just that one beer, you're going to allow temptation in. And that's where I find sowing your wild oats, because I'll admit it. I see a pretty girl and I'm like, ooh, cute. nice
Right.
butt, nice rack,
Right.
nice legs,
Yeah.
whatever. And you kind of look at women, and mind you, I've never cheated on my wife, anything like this,
Right.
but yeah, like I said, like you said, we both got married later in life, and just seeing all the things we've seen. I've traveled the United States, a little Canada, haven't done the
Yeah.
extensive other states, other countries like you have, but I've gallivanted around the country. I'll say it
Yeah.
that way. And, you know,
Traveled the country.
in,
And America's nice. I love America. America's great. Proud patriot. Proud American. I will say some of these other countries have it right and we don't. In some things, they do. It is what it is. They have it right in some things and we don't.
well, yeah, it's easy. As much as I do love America, and I do
Yeah.
believe we are one of the greatest countries in the world, the fact is as no matter how perfect I think I am, there's things that I do that are not right. You know,
Yeah.
the greatest country in the world obviously is going to do things wrong every now and then. And
Yeah.
I mean, we had slavery. As soon as we realized we were doing it wrong, we got rid of it.
Yeah.
And
Our hospital systems today are just wrong. They're so screwed up.
well, there's
Mm-hmm.
a whole lot that I can go into about,
Yeah.
but look at it, even with our hospital systems the way they are, we have other
Mhm.
countries coming to us for medical attention.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah. The capitalist medical system is good,
yes.
but the operation processes are incorrect.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Where
in
the
South
government's
Korea,
involved.
yeah, like in South Korea, how they placed their hospitals were totally different. Like so like you have this one city, and in this one city, you know, regardless of the size of the city, there's one hospital, and the hospital is massive. It's so big it can fit everybody in the city. Well, why? So now the people that live right here, like, bloop, but the people that live right here, like,
Long distance.
So the way Korea has it, they have the same hospital with all the same equipment, all the stuff, but smaller versions of it, just all over. Oops, sorry, all over the city. So like
Right.
that thought process to me when I was in Korea was like that's smart. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to have one massive hospital. Anyways, back to topic.
Right. But yeah, we're getting off topic. Easy. Squirrel.
Yeah, no squirrel.
But like
Squirrel.
the advice that we're faced with before we even get married is, and I have no idea, I think a lot of it is people get married and they live in a marriage because they find it convenient.
Right.
Their kids are grown, gone, and they're angry because they did not have a happy marriage, or they got married and they got married to their high school sweetheart. There's nothing wrong with that. I've known people that I grew up with that got married to their high school sweethearts, have beautiful families. They seem to live a very happy life, but
yeah, it's actually a statistic. It's actually, statistically speaking, people that spend a larger majority of their time together in the early days and then get, and don't go sowing their royal oats and actually get married and stay together and have kids and stuff, end up long-term marriages and permanently staying together. More so than the normal people, the rest of the people, the ones that go party and sleep with people and do all this stuff and get it out of their system, quote unquote, before they go get married.
Well, to add on to it, you figure the older you get, it's kind of like I was talking to a gentleman and he was telling me he's been doing his business for 40 years, right? He's like, I just can't change the way I do this. And I'm like, 40 years, you get into a routine and it makes sense. So when you go out and soil your royal oats, you look at, you're so used to having your place, maybe a roommate, but it's still your place. You have your room, all this stuff.
You're alone.
Yeah.
Everything's mine and me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say for an example, like I was in my mid 30s. After, let's say 18 to 35, that's just shy of 20 years being focused mostly on what
Yeah.
I have to do to survive, what I
Yeah.
have to
My
do
needs, my
for
life.
my needs, for
Right.
what,
Doing what I right.
yeah.
Now you
And
share it with somebody else,
yeah,
and
once you share with
well,
somebody else, then you add into a kid into that mix, and you're so used to, okay, like for me, I've always enjoyed learning something new. I'm always focused on
right.
trying to learn something new. That time for me has diminished extensively since I've had kids.
Right.
When it was
Yeah.
my wife and I, we would spend time together. I would study and she would do her studyings, all this stuff.
Right.
Now with kids, it's okay. So we focus
Yeah.
on this. We do this. We have to do this. And I do my research time, my study time at night when I'm exhausted, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of changes. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if I would have gotten married early, and I'm very happy that I have my wife.
Right.
The the time that we've spent fighting each other to break each other out of our old habits to be able to
Mm-hmm.
handle our ways now is
Yeah.
worth what we have now versus what we started off with.
Right.
But
For sure.
it's also the concept of if if you don't follow that advice that you're given, then you get married, you have kids, you
Mm-hmm.
build your life, and it might be rougher at the beginning because the advice I'm hearing a lot of people spout out now is, oh, wait later when you've built your life up and you're ready to have kids and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds great in theory, but in
Yeah.
overall, it's just crap.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people. So for one, a lot of people don't realize, for the most part, children are only like 18 years. I mean, yeah, you're going to be a father for the rest of your life,
Right,
but after about 18 and 20 years, they are going to have a majority of their life to themselves. They're not going to be bothering you. You know what I mean? You will still have fatherly things to do forever. It's a lifelong responsibility. Don't get me wrong. But how often do I talk to my parents? Talk to them at least a couple times a week for the
yeah,
most part. I talk to my grandparents at least once, twice a week. Talk to my dad, same thing, once, twice a week. Um, but all of my life is handled through me. I handle my life. I'm a 40-year-old man. They
right,
don't do it for me anymore. My dad goes and enjoys his time, right?
right,
So, that's what a lot of people don't realize. My dad was 18, 20 years old. My dad was, currently my age, maybe a little bit older than me currently. You know what I mean? Maybe 45, 46 years old. He had the rest of his life to just go if do whatever he wanted to do. He didn't have he didn't have to deal with me anymore. I was long gone by that point.
right.
You know what I mean? Um, I'm looking at it now, and I went and did all those things, and now I'm 40 years old. I'm wore out. I'm tired, drawn out. I can barely do all the things I need to do and want to do. I'm fighting through it every day, but I have to take care of my 6-year old.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So that's one instance. You can get this stuff done when you're younger, and then when you're older and tired, you can go and enjoy those older, tireder things, right?
right.
It seems it's weird how that stuff is written in a special book that we were all told we should probably read. Yeah, it's weird
Yeah,
how that timeline is there. And then the other factor to that is, and this may sound weird and maybe a little gross, but there is a biological factor to starting and getting married and having kids at an earlier age. Women are biologically um, supposed to they they get in that biological frame at a little bit younger of an age than men. That's typically why men are a little bit older in the relationship and women are a little bit younger in the relationship. That's a
right.
typical standard. Um, but biologically, women should be having children in their 20s range for one, the mental health capacity on top of the fact that their bodies can bounce back like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas when you're 35 years old and you're having a kid, your body doesn't bounce back instantly. Your hormones, you're right at the predisposition of menopause. You're right at the cusp of it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So maybe it does. Maybe it kicks your body into menopause, kicks it into overdrive, and it goes into menopause when you shouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that there are all these factors that come into play, and it actually does play a large role in women's mental health because their bodies don't look like they should because they're tore up from a kid, you know. But if they have a kid at 22 or 25 years old,
Yeah.
it's like instant, right? You know, you have a kid, pop it out back to normal, right? It's almost instant. And that's not every woman, obviously. You know, that's a lot. Let's be realistic. That's not every single woman. But you know, when you're 22 years old, 25 years old, your body's a lot more versatile than when you're 35 or 38. You
Oh
know what I mean?
yeah.
So that alone, you know, it has a reason. Your body has a design for a reason. You know what I mean? Granted, I'm not telling you to go pump out kids with a bunch of people at 20 years old. I'm saying what we should be doing, you know, what is kind of the entire framework of the nonprofit, the American Liberty Foundation, is to teach younger people that instead of soiling your royal oats, is to, you know, find someone young, you know,
Mm-hmm.
work on yourself, work on someone else, work together, you know, and then have a long-term relationship. You know, maybe go to church and meet somebody. I mean, it doesn't have to always be church. You know, I'm not
Right.
super Mr. God, Mr. Religious, you know, but you know, if you follow that stuff, you know, and maybe even the weirdest thing that I said I would never condone is save yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't have to be for marriage, but it doesn't need to be the night you meet her, you freaking, you know, getting
Right.
down. You know what I mean? Not that it's not awesome. It's definitely awesome. But, you know, if you do these things, you know, you save yourself for someone that has over time uh, proven themselves to be something worthy of giving yourself to them fully, as well as, you know, learning to, you know, enjoy each other and becoming friends and like actually mentally family and stuff like that. So if you're just like getting in it with somebody, there's that hormone factor that induces what you call it, where you just over infatuated with somebody.
Oh, the
So you
bonding
think it
mechanism.
right. So you think you're in love, but you're not.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know, if you save yourself and you don't have sex right away, and you bond together, you know, with that other person without that over time, when the time comes when you finally do, it'll be that much better, and you'll actually have that long-term relationship. So that's just something that if I'd have known that when I was younger, I had too many people, you know, tell me, "Oh, just go party and bang chicks." Not to mention they were always like, I mean, how are you going to get married if you're like doing it with your wife and your wife is like, "You suck, you have no experience." So I let that get in my head, and that's
Right.
actually nonsense because as I'm much older now, the more into my wife I am, the more I love her. Has
Right.
nothing to do with the feeling. I mean, I could just like, I'm like, I'm like in proximity of her, and I'm like, ah, I'm done. You know what I mean? But it's just it's that mental connection feeling of love, and it really has nothing to do with the actual physical sex itself. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they always tell you, what about all the guys who are all like addicted to porn? I mean, they're so addicted to porn that when they actually do go have sex, they can't get the you know the
No.
final move. They can't do it, right? Because your brain is psychologically attached to pornography,
Mm-hmm.
not the physical touch. So it actually has nothing to do with the actual feeling and physical touch of it. It has to do with your mental connection.
Well, on
And
top of
that's
that,
something I wish I knew.
right. Well, on top of that, it's also the things you see in porn and such. They're
Hmm.
so unrealistic.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it makes no
I wish
sense
somebody
to
would
me.
do that to me.
Yeah. But I always find that interesting because yeah, it's so unrealistic that you sit there and you go,
Mm,
you know, that looks fun.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. In my younger years, I remember having some girls that would be, oh, I saw this on a porn. Let's try it. I'm like, all right, sure. It
Mm.
was awkward. You
Yeah. It
obviously
never
have
like
to
works
know.
out. It's weird.
Yeah,
Right.
well, porns, they can stop, edit it together, and
Right.
all the stuff to where, oh, this looks like, no,
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
doesn't work the way you think it does. But
Not to mention most of those guys in a lot of those more famous movies where they do that weird, crazy stuff. Most of those guys are like athletes. They're like
yeah,
ridiculously fit, like ridiculously. Like they practice that same move or stance or whatever they're doing over and over and over again until they get it just right for the movie.
right.
You know what I mean? So that's what a lot of people don't understand.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of weird that as a society, like you're saying it, the
Mhm.
so like I do love the physical thing, when it
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't?
but when it comes
Yeah,
down to it is I realize that having sex with my wife is so much better than just gallivanting out there and
right, right.
having 30 girls in a weekend or whatever it is that you're trying to do. You know, it's,
Ain't nothing better than big old hips.
but the fact is, and do you know why men are attracted to girls with big hips? I mean, it's pretty,
Right,
it's,
right. It's
so
awesome. But
let me jump to, I'm curious. Have you ever heard this bad advice? Okay. This
mm,
once I was telling people that my wife was pregnant when we got to the point for my son. I'm like, yeah,
mm,
my wife's pregnant. And the first person that told me, I thought, well, you're nuts. And who thinks this? Then I got told by a couple other people as time progressed, don't make having a kid your whole priority. Don't make the kid your life. And I'm sitting there thinking,
yeah,
I understand you need to have a life outside of having a kid because you need other things.
yeah,
But to
yeah.
me, it's your kid should be you should have your priorities as your wife, your
Mm,
kids, and then
yeah. It should
everything.
be your yeah, yeah. I was definitely told that a few times. Where I mean, people always try to tell me, even sometimes my wife, because I can tell, and she does it out of love for me, but she tells me that, why don't you just go get a hobby or meet somebody at a hobby or something and go like shooting and meet some shooting buddies or something, go shooting with the guys. I'm like, I mean, it's cool, yeah, and if it happens, and I just so happen to meet some guys and we go shooting and whatever together, cool. But I mean, I'm not gonna go seek it. My family is number one. I'm sorry. Like I will always focus on you guys, no matter what. I'll always focus on my family, no matter what.
Right.
My wife tells me all the time I need to go down and visit my brother. I'm like, okay, are you coming? Oh no, we can't. She's got school, so on and so forth, this and that. I'm like, well, then I'm not going.
Yeah.
She's like, why? You need to go visit your brother. I was like, okay, I'm sure I do, but I'm not me anymore. This is us. If my family doesn't go, I don't go. I don't understand. Like I don't want to go. I want my family with me at all the time. I don't like my family being 12 hours away from me. It's weird. This is my
Right.
family. I want you guys all the time. The other factor to that, there is another bad advice that's similar, and the reason to bring it up is because it's very similar with the same concept. Um, People told me forever that my child should be number one. I should care for and treat my child in my family. And this I'm talking internally within my
Right.
family, is treat my children or my child. For me, it's my child one as number one. And I can tell you today that that is incorrect. 100% incorrect. You should treat your wife, your spouse, as number one. Because what a lot of people don't realize is if you spend all of your time on your child, you will neglect your spouse. And then what
Hmm.
happens when you neglect your spouse? You will separate further and further apart, causing fights, arguments, which your child is watching the entire time. then you will slowly move closer and closer and closer to divorce and not being a family anymore. Which again, your child is watching all of this go down. So by proxy, you treat your child as number one by treating your spouse as number one.
Oh yeah.
So,
And I agree with having. Here's my viewpoint or my take on it: is your wife is number one. You should be a joint team in the battle of life, in the battle of everything coming.
Mm-hmm.
You're there to protect your kids and guide them correctly. You and your wife should be working for that same goal. Now, if, say, you have a wife that is crazy, then yes, you need to protect your kids from that situation.
Right.
But each situation, obviously, we've said this before, each situation has their own scenarios, blah, blah, blah. But ideally, you and your wife works together to manage to raise the family the way that you both feel it's proper. There's topics that my wife and I disagree with, right?
Yeah.
She believes that a private traditional style school or a group setting is better. I'm more homeschool focused.
Yeah.
But we work together to figure out how to make this work for us, right?
Right.
And then we go to our kids and use that strategy with them so that they feel included, they feel important, but they also know that we work as a team to achieve what needs to be done. And I think people sitting there going, either don't put your kids first, don't treat them like they're a big deal, or put your kids first, are both extremely bad advice. Your kids should be a major priority in your life without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like you were saying, I work with the company I'm at. All the people that go there, as soon as they get a chance, they want to drink, they want to party, they want to, when they're away from their families and all this. And, my younger days, I would have drank it up. I would have partied like crazy. But here's the funny thing is, one, when you're in a work environment, I find it very tacky. The older I get, especially, the more I realize how tacky it is to drink with coworkers.
Yeah, people I don't know and care about.
Well, people like to think, oh, well, these coworkers are friends. 90% of the times, no matter how friendly you are with a coworker, within a month of leaving that company, they're not going to think about you other than, do you remember what was his name? Oh, yeah, that was so-and-so. And you're just going to be a couple stories they talk about. And
the moment they get the chance to throw you under the bus to get themselves promoted, under the bus you go.
Exactly. And the fact is, and that's another reason that you should not be putting work in front of family, because work is easily, I get reached out to recruiters constantly, and most of them are BS, I'll be honest. But I mean, there's always another job out there. If you need to find work, there's always work.
Yeah. It's always something.
Yeah. And the problem is people get so focused, oh, well, I have to work for my family. Well, yes,
but
you need to work for your family, but you also need to make sure that you're focused on your family to have a good life with you. Because if you don't, you're just coming up short in life, and you're going to be miserable at work. You're going to be miserable at home. You're going to be miserable and divorced.
Right. I mean, you're right. There are things that are that are obvious. I mean, with that statement of saying you have to put your spouse first and then your child and stuff like that, and then work and other stuff like that. There's obviously certain instances in which case you're like, honey, no, I got to go to work. I mean, so that's reality. I mean, that there is a reality factor in this, but when it comes to priorities of like always shutting down, always staying late, always giving in to your boss, always, and never being home. When it gets to that point, then it's like, all right, come on, you know what I mean? And then there's other ones, with factors of putting your wife first your child. Like I mean, obviously not a real scenario, but if two people were holding guns one to my wife and one to my kid, and they were saying, gotta choose, I'd be like, I'm keeping my kid. Kill the wife. You know what I mean? Obviously, and
I understand.
and
Yes.
it's totally based on statistics. My wife is almost 40 years old. She's lived a long, happy, loving life. She's had a child. She's had me. She has a loving family. So she's had the ability to at least have a career, have a life, a family, all that stuff, and she's lived that. Not to mention she's 40. You know what I mean? Her number of years left are almost they're 50% or less. You know what I mean?
Right. She's
similar to
midlife.
mine. 50% of your life is over or less. Where my daughter, statistically speaking, her entire life, she has 95% of her life left. You know what I mean? She's never had the full loving of a family, like as an adult, like her own husband and kids and so on and so forth.
Right.
She's never traveled anywhere other than like a couple of small things locally and out of town, out of state, and stuff like Michigan and stuff like that.
Right.
But so that's why I would statistically choose, my child over my wife. But that's just using simple math. You know what I mean?
Well, you'd hope your wife would hope you do that too. I mean, honestly.
Right. My wife has said the same thing. Yeah, me and her have actually had this conversation. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm not surprised.
But I mean, yeah. As odd as it may seem, as crazy as I am, me and my wife are the same. I've married somebody just as crazy as me. So who knew? It works though. So
right.
as much as many issues as we have, they're our issues, and that's a good thing. But yeah, that idea and that concept shows, there are going to be things where you're going to have to choose your child over. It's not that you choose your child over, it's that you and your wife together have agreed in this particular situation, we need to choose the kid, and the kid is more important.
Right.
You know what I mean? For those scenarios. But it's based on the idea that you didn't make the decision over your wife and tell your wife, no, I'm doing this for the kid. The two of you together, connected, made the decision together to do this for the kid over whatever else,
right.
Whatever it was. Right. So that's kind of the concept of it. So, you obviously have to use logic and reason and reality.
Well, another thing on top of it is, like, my wife and I both have parental issues in the sense of like my biological dad was basically crappy in the sense of I was maybe his 50th priority in line for his priorities. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I have enough examples to prove that, but that's here or there. The fact is I grew up and my stepdad made sure that I knew he cared. I was a priority to him, or I was in his list of priorities, things like that. But even the conversations I've had with John Finch, the things I've seen him post, I still follow his thing on the father effect and what so have you, because to me it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Having my stepfather there was a blessing, but at the same time, knowing that my biological father could care less, and it was more, he wanted to show for his own image. He wanted look at me kind of, that's what I was good for to him is look at me, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, whatever. And that does have an effect on you. My wife has issues where how she was raised, her parents were certain ways. I'm not going to go into that, but I don't even know where to begin to describe it. But the fact is with all that, we both have issues with how we were raised and different battles that we fight because of it. Right. And we have to kind of watch each other to make sure that we say, no, we can't, no, don't do that. I understand, but because we have, and you know this well enough, you've even mentioned, we have our own demons to deal with. We cannot let those demons interact or affect how our kids are. And sometimes we have to fight each other on our behalf of our own kids because of the demons we have.
Right. Yeah.
And so I find that as a big thing. And, you know, it's one of those things that you do have to, like you said, you have to decide who's the priority, but you have to make sure it's the right priority, and you and your wife. I was going to say spouse, because there are women listening to this. I mean, I just had some lady reach out to me asking me if she can share one of our shorts on a website. So that goes to show me that we do have women listening. So hello, ladies.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
It is. This is, as much as we focus on the fathers, this is a whole family thing, because it affects the whole family. And
we are looking for a woman to come on. So we have yet to have one.
Well, with the right topic.
Yeah, with the right topic, right.
Just having a woman on just to say...
Just to have one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But having a lady on, bringing in a different view.
Let's talk about Instagram reels and hot chicks.
Yeah. Not the right
Do they
topic.
have a link tree, and do they have an OnlyFans? Let's check it out.
Yeah. And, you know, it's craziness. And but what is the worst advice you've actually gotten about kids? I'm quite curious.
About kids.
I mean, I've gotten several, and some of them even came from books where they're like,
simple parenting techniques, I guess. I guess, I guess a lot of them, I mean, they're I don't know. I never really had a whole lot of advice. I would say most of it would, if it were books and stuff that I read, or books that my wife read and stuff, and just overly thinking about what's wrong. You know what I mean? That we should get them diagnosed with ADHD and get her diagnosed with this and go take it to the doctor for this and do this and this and this and this and the other. And, do it. And what most of the things that I wish I'd have known today is like nutrition and health.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Big time. Because, I mean, it's one of the biggest factors into issues with children and how they are. I was always into like fitness and health and stuff like that, but I wasn't as deeply minded into it as I am today. I never thought that eating cereal for breakfast was bad.
Right.
Who would have thought? So I guess it's more of lack of guidance. You know what I mean? Whereas, I mean, I love pancakes, obviously.
Right.
You know what I mean? But who would have thought that giving your kids pancakes every single day was a bad thing?
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'm the first one to tell you. I've always said pancakes with your dad has never been about the pancakes. Pancakes is always just kind of there. It's fun. It's great. It is, but it's not. It's always been about the time you spend with your kids. So I'll be the first one to tell you, pancakes for breakfast is not always the best thing to give your kids for breakfast. It really isn't.
No.
They should be eating an egg or something.
Well, that's why we do it once a week at my house. I mean, it's
right. It's a once a week thing. Pancakes is just fun for Sundays.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's what I've always told everybody, that it's never been about the pancakes, because I mean, pancakes have wheat in them, the sugar, the covered in syrup, you do chocolate chips and nonsense and stuff. And if you read anything about wheat is terrible for you. Today they've GMO'd the crap out of it to the point to where it's screwing up your bodies. So I guess it's a lot of that stuff. And it's, instead of, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, instead of going to the doctor to get my kid diagnosed with ADHD and get the child on medication, which is what a lot of the books said. Why she acts out this way, why she acts out that way. Maybe we should have just looked at what she ate a little bit better.
Yeah, well, it's like, I've noticed a big difference since speaking of food is we make our own bread here at my house, right? We got one of those bread machines, and I make a loaf a week,
Right.
And I'll give my kids,
cool.
They'll have breakfast, a slice of bread with either real butter or natural jam, something like that. But I kid you not, one week we ended up buying a loaf of bread from the store, and it sat there, and it was almost 3 weeks before it started to show any sign of change.
Yeah, like the mold and stuff.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, how can bread sitting out on a counter last 3 weeks? And think about it this way. Like I've done this for the longest time, and I even just learned this. Like, I thought like goldfish crackers were not really that bad. I thought they were mostly like a cheese mixture of bread.
Yeah, cheese cracker.
Oh my God, no. They're
bad for you. Yeah.
Like, we just threw away a couple bags of goldfish crackers because we just learned all it is a chemical compound mixture of fake flavors. And I mean, it's disgusting.
Like wheat and processed wheat and stuff. Yeah.
Goldfish crackers, Cheez-Its, things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, anymore it's not made from our house and made from, or if it's something we made, like we make the bread here, we make our own ice cream,
right? We
make our own dinners, and we occasionally have like corn dogs, but even the pizza.
We occasionally have the nonsense, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
But like even the pizza, like tonight, I'm gonna take some flour, take some water, take some sugar and salt, and make a pizza dough, throw it in the oven with some spaghetti sauce and meat and cheese,
right?
And have that. But
it doesn't need to be a perfect pizza, but it's something you slap together, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But
we do the same thing with we do the same thing with most stuff. My kid still eats Cheez-Its and stuff. I would like her to stop, but I'm not going to fight it that much because she likes them, and she doesn't powerhouse them all the time every day or nothing. It's just now and again. She'll have like a couple of cheeses, so her goldfish or whatever is like a little snack. But yeah, I agree. It's terrible. And one of the things that we do to kind of combat a lot of the stuff from the stores and stuff, one is a farmer's market up the road, and then two, Aldi. I don't know. I probably have mentioned it before, but Aldi is very, 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 very strict about the food that they sell in their store. A lot of the food in America they don't even allow in their store. There's a few of them that obviously they do. I think they allow like Gatorade and stuff like that. But there's a few stuff like their eggs. When they get eggs for in their thing, you know how you go to like Walmart and they're like, it's like corporate eggs, in the special styrofoam container. Every egg is exactly the same. Their eggs they actually get from local places within the state, somewhere around here. It's not local to where I live, but it is local to like the state right here. Within like so many mile radius, and they get eggs from farms here, and they come in like woven, paper cartons and stuff. So it's, same thing with like the blueberries and the strawberries and the raspberries. You get all the fruit, and it's like, you'll see, it's like right there, boom. The state I live in, right, is local. They, as well as if you go into their cereal aisle, you'll see they have like Cheerios and stuff like that. But they don't have them all. They have just a couple of the big names like Cheerios, Fruit Loops, so on and so forth. But they also have all the different variations of their own brands. So you take Fruit Loops, and they have one called Fruit Rounds. It's exactly the same as Fruit Loops. You put them side by side next to each other. Fruit Loops is like all the chemical compounds and red dye and blue dye and this and that and the other.
Yeah.
And then you look at the one from Aldi, and they use like beet juice for the
No,
red dye. They use like blueberry
for the
juice,
blue.
or like right for the blue. And carrot juice for the orange, and even for the yellow, they use a little bit of carrot juice, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, they explain it to you on the back of it, and they use this for that, and they use this for that, and it's pretty cool. So it's that to me is better. We go to Aldi quite often.
See,
Just
I might
because.
have to start doing Aldi's. There's one, but it's a little
Mhm.
further away. But
Yeah, if you're gonna get store food, they're good to go. I mean, I still go to Publix now and again. Obviously, Publix is awesome. You know what I mean?
well, see, we have
But
Food Line here, so
oh, Food Line, yeah, Food Line's all right, yeah. But it just for the most part, we go and we get a lot of the stuff from Aldi. Now you
right.
still have to go to we still go and get a few things from Walmart. We still go and get a few things from Publix. Just because Walmart's got great prices, Publix has good food,
Mm-hmm.
but majority comes from Aldi just because it doesn't have all that stuff in it, which is
Right.
good. So they choose to get rid of it and not even allow that stuff in their stores. So
Oh,
that's something that I wish I'd have known years ago.
I can't tell you how much time I've spent in grocery stores just picking up a handful of items because I'm standing there reading, going, okay, this
Yeah.
has what ingredient? I
Not
can't.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you always
Mm.
think, oh, well, if it's healthier, it has to be more expensive. I kid
Right.
you not. You know how many
That's
times I
wrong.
found like
Yeah.
off brands that
Mhm.
have better pricing and they don't have the
Yeah.
chemicals and
Yeah.
but do you know the one trick they're using now to get away from telling you about all the chemicals is like they'll say
Oh,
fruit
natural flavors.
no. Like when you're reading the ingredients, they'll have a bunch of natural ingredients, things like that. And then they'll
Mhm.
also have like blah 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 concentrate. So in
Yeah.
the concentrate they use has
It
the
has all that stuff in it. Yeah.
so they don't tell
Yeah.
you what's in that concentrate.
Right. I was reading about it too, about the when you're reading in the ingredients and
Mm-hmm.
it says like natural flavorings or natural flavors. I
Yeah.
mean, well, that's a generic word. It's
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to tell you what's in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because well,
Mm.
yeah, it's chemicals is what it boils down
Yeah.
to. And I kid you not, I even get looks in grocery stores when my son
Mhm.
goes to grab something. I'm like, no, that's nothing but chemicals. And you have somebody
Mhm.
standing there
Yeah.
holding the exact same item, kind of.
Right.
And the problem
You're like,
is I'm just like, I'm like, you're not eating that. That's going to do nothing but kill your intestines, kill your
right.
organs. No, you know
Yeah.
better. We don't eat chemicals.
Right.
And people still look at you funny when you say
Mhm.
that because they
Oh
either
yeah.
don't know, they don't care,
Yeah.
or
My whole family and a lot of friends that I have like practically ostracized me for the way I eat. And I'm like,
oh, my mom
I'm
gives
40 years old, and if I shave, the only reason you can tell for the most part that I'm 40 is because I have white hair on my face. I
yeah,
mean, I got maybe a couple of wrinkles, but I think if I shaved and cleaned up, I could easily pass for 30s. You know,
right. Oh yeah, me too. But for me, a lot of it's like you can barely see some
It's-
of the ones and two, like mine aren't clumped together.
the-
So like
yeah,
mine, you have to
I
actually.
got a big patch there and there.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have the patches, like the professor patches.
Yeah,
But
Professor Patches.
see, like mine's just
What is that? The
spot.
elbow?
Yeah, oh yes. Mine's what is it? Salt and peppered. So
Yeah, that's how my hair is. But I mean, just I tell them all the time. I'm like, my grandmother like gets on me all the time, ostracizes me. She's like, "Oh, that's nonsense. Oh, that's just conspiracy theories," and she's always complaining and stuff. I'm like, but you've been overweight for 60 years. You've been enormously unhealthy. You've had every issue in the book. You're always in the hospital. I'm I'm 40 years old and I can dumbbell press two 100-pound dumbbells 20 times and put them down and be like, okay,
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Well, even my mom gets
It's
on me about like,
right,
I'm sitting there going, I don't want the kids to have candy. And she's like,
right.
oh, well, I didn't give them any red candy. I'm like, you don't understand.
Yeah,
If like, I have no problem with her bringing her cookies, homemade cookies, all
yeah,
this. Homemade stuff,
yeah,
I don't want them to have a ton of sugar, but I'll deal with the
yeah.
homemade cookies.
A little for grandma. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But,
okay now and then, right?
it's like, if like she got upset with me one time she was here because I'm like, no, do not give them the Jelly Bellies. Those are just chemicals.
Yeah, it's literally
Yeah,
sugar and plastic.
exactly.
Literally
And
says it on the thing.
yeah,
Carnauba wax.
yeah. So I mean, literally, a lot of these candies are chemicals, plastic, sugar, and I think even now they're not even using real sugar in some stuff. It's chemical sugars.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like,
Chemical.
I'm trying to explain to my
That's what
mom,
most of your table salt and white sugar is. It's chemicals. It's not real.
well, I buy kosher salt. So
Yeah,
it's real salt. I
yeah.
buy I have natural sugars. So it's
Hmm.
those are a little bit more expensive, but
Yeah,
I
it's
make
better for you, right?
yeah, I make sure that I know sugar's not great. We use it in about everything in a lot of stuff, but on the same
Mm,
note, I'm making sure I'm not getting it's like you have to be careful with your milk. Some milks
right,
are now mixed with what is it? Rice water.
right. Yeah.
And I still find it funny when you see some milk cartons that will say has some dairy products.
Yeah.
It's like milk should be all dairy product.
Milk. Yeah.
Yeah. There should not be
Yeah.
some dairy in it. It should be all dairy. But
Yeah. I forget the name of the brand. It's like a blue bottle. I don't remember it. It's all like all milk and stuff. They actually the company I think is owned by like Coca-Cola or something like that. I don't remember. So the corporation that owns it is a normal one, like
uh,
one of the more famous ones.
right.
But this brand of milk is they're good with their milk and stuff, but they got in trouble a little while back and had some stocking issues where you couldn't get their milk for a while. But it was only because they were in trouble for mistreating their animals,
Now,
which that's a farm. Sorry about your luck. And
yeah,
it
well,
I think they even got through the lawsuit and found I think they settled for like a little bit because I think it was just some sort of animal treatment people that were like, you can't do that. And
yeah,
they're cows. You have to like shave their feet and put new shoes on. That's how you put the shoe on.
yeah. People people that
Yeah.
never been on a farm, never seen a
Right.
farm,
Hmm.
it people have these misguided views
Yeah.
of
I think that's what it was. I don't think they were actually mistreating their animals. I think one of those animal activist groups were like, "You can't do that to an animal, to a cow." It's like,
yeah, what was it?
that's how you do it.
I watched a video, a farmer, like a big rancher farmer,
Mhm.
and he had farmland, he had animals and all this, was debating with
Yeah,
these hippies or climate activists, and they were complaining about
yeah,
all this stuff. And he goes, do you drink almond milk? I'm like, well,
yeah.
yes. He goes, do you know how many animals you kill by drinking almond milk? He goes,
Oh yeah,
let's look at it. You kill
it's
the
crazy.
birds. He goes, they spray pesticides so that you can have your almonds, because if not, the almonds would be
Mhm.
eaten up by bugs.
Right.
And then the bugs that eat that pesticide gets eaten by birds, by snakes, by other
Hmm.
animals, and it kills them. He goes,
Hmm.
these almond fields are just graveyards.
Yeah,
And that's another thing, is you have to
yeah,
be careful of your fruits. But let's do this. We're going into
yeah.
a tangent. And I think at this point we've kind of beaten this. I think we should have a conversation later about, since we've already discussed the vice, we should probably dig deeper in on another conversation about
Hmm.
the things we know now that we wish we would have known before. But
Hmm.
let's do this before everyone starts getting tired of our tangents. How about we tell everyone where they can find us? You personally,
Yeah.
where do people find you?
So yeah, as always, the normal pancakeswithyourdad.com. It has a contact page. You can send me emails or whatever. You can put messages on there. Same thing with all my social medias. You can find all of them on there as well, or you can just go to them. There's Facebook, Instagram, X, True Social, and I do have a LinkedIn as well. You can contact me on any of them. Um, the nonprofit is actually finally done. Got a big news announcement. I actually got my approval letter from the IRS for the 501c3. So it is official. There is a little bit more work I gotta do, like setting up the donation accounts, all that stuff, in order to get things processed, which I am still working on, as well as getting the website to be actively operating properly. So I'm still getting things going, but it is official. I do actually physically have the 501c3 in place. So we are officially a fully tax deductible nonprofit, 100%. So American Liberty Foundation, so it's american-liberty-foundation.org. You can go there and find as much information as we have on them. As things progress, there will be more. And as more donations and more funding comes in, we will grow and grow and get out more information about American traditionalism, the traditional family, how men being men and women being women, and how to live life, honorably and for the children, for the next generation. That's the goal. So
Sounds good. So yeah, definitely, and congratulations on that. I know it's been an uphill for you on that one. So
yeah, like 5 years.
so congratulations there. Call with Dads, obviously callwithdads.com. We're basically everywhere. We're even just started a TikTok where we're putting our shorts on there as well. But if you want Call with Dads, you can find us there. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, on almost all audio. We're putting out as much in social media as we can, but with everything we're doing with Call with Dads, we're limited on our options. So with that being said, if you need anything, the best place to reach out to either Mr. Pancakes or myself is callwithdads.com. You can reach out to him at pancakeswithyourdad.com, American Liberty Foundation.com. So go to these places. They're all listed in the show notes. And of course, they're all going to be at callwithdads.com, where you can click on the links to find those. So with that, thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.